you gonna do when the rain is coming down? Nothing more to do when there's no one else around. Bring it back to the middle, push, take it back to the rhythm.
Hey guys, I'm Jen McKnight and you are listening to the Mind Beam podcast. If you want to talk about anything that has to do with business, success, mindset, life, then you're in the right place. Now, I'm super excited because I just finished an interview with someone who is absolutely spectacular, a phenomenal individual, a comedian, TV host, radio presenter, brand phenomenon, whose charisma and resilience has just propelled him to the top of his field. Now, the reason why I'm super excited is because he has a phenomenal story to share. Despite his challenges and the traumatic events that he had to endure in his life, he decided who he wanted to be. He decided his destiny. He didn't let the world define who he is or his parents. He wasn't a victim of his circumstance. He decided that the world was for him and not against him. And I really want that to inspire you as well. This particular individual also has a phenomenal ability to harness creativity and overcome any obstacle in his life. And I'm so excited because I know that this is going to inspire you just as much as it inspires me. So I am so happy to introduce you to my dear friend, Lucky Du Plessis. Now, this might be something that you've heard before, it might not be, but what I find with a lot of people that I coach is that it is quite a common barrier for people that aren't achieving what they want in life, right? So they're not achieving their goals, or they're not achieving at work, or financially they're not achieving, or even in their personal life. What I often find is they are in a state of victim consciousness. Now, what that means is they believe the world's against them, and they look for external factors that they can justify that's the reason why they're in that space, right?
Yeah.
So it's a blame and justify state of mind that you're in. Now, what happens with victim consciousness and when someone is in that state is it means you're giving away control of being in control of your own life and managing your destiny, right? So if you give away that control and wait for your external environment to sort of change the situation for you and make it more favorable, it's never going to happen because you're relying on everything other than yourself, right? So victim consciousness is a huge barrier for personal growth. And some people might have it in all areas of their life, and some people might have it in certain areas of their life. Now, you more than anybody that I know have had probably the biggest excuse to fall into that state of victim consciousness. But you chose not to. In fact, you did the complete opposite, right? You've had two completely different cultures in your life. You've had huge barriers and some traumatic growing up that you had to overcome. But you decided then and there that you weren't going to be a victim of your surroundings and your environment and your situation. In fact, you thrived and you turned that completely on its head. So before we start, I really want you to just tell me a bit about yourself. What was it like growing up in South Africa? You know, you didn't really know your parents that well, and you had that whole cultural background, which is very deeply ingrained, especially in this country. And then you were adopted by a beautiful family, which is like your love, your rock, your passion now, which was also life-changing for you, but completely different culture. What was that like for you?
Yeah, listen, I mean, it's quite a story, but I'll sum it up quickly. It's obviously, you know, I think the story goes, I was born in Kimberley. I knew my dad. We don't know where my mom went. We don't know where she is or who she is. Then my dad had a girlfriend. Everything was fine. I still remember him boxing. I used to always box every day. And, you know, nature versus nurture, the discussion will always be there, but I have this idea, I have this vision of him. Every morning he would box and then he would pick me up and he would walk through, you know, after showering, he'd walk through the town and he would hold me and he would greet everyone. And, you know, and I always believe that's why I've got such a friendly, bubbly personality because of him. He was quite a talkative guy. Anyways, you know, push forward, he had this girlfriend and then this girlfriend took me from him and decided to leave Kimberley.
So where was your mom at the time?
We don't know. So we don't.
So nobody knows.
Nobody knows. Nobody knows. Nobody can clarify it. I mean, we've gone back and forth and whatnot. Then she decided to take me from Kimberley to, well, at the time I didn't know where I was going, but we left Kimberley and we're on this trek forever. And at the time I could speak Tswana, I think. Well, I used to speak Tswana, and then she would I just stopped speaking as a kid. I was quite young. I think I was around 2, 3. Don't know yet. Don't know the factual age or whatnot. But I was then taken from there, and then we went and we stayed in this. It's. I don't know if your parents had these photos in their houses. It's like, have you seen those photos, and you have these like beautiful hills, and then there's like a little house.
Yes.
And then there's like veld.
Yes.
You know those
Yes,
pictures.
yes,
You know
yes,
those
yes,
pictures.
yes. Yeah.
Everyone had them. All our parents had them. They're
all had them,
ugly.
yeah.
They're so ugly.
100%.
But my parents had one of those. But we stayed in a house like that. We stayed in a house that was in the middle of two beautiful running hills and felt all over. And we stayed there with this woman, and I don't know who she was. And
this was your dad's girlfriend at the time?
Yeah. So my dad's girlfriend took me from, and then we stayed with this other older woman. And so this lady that took me from my dad was named Portia. And what we did is I didn't speak to her. I would just nod yes or no, depending if I wanted something. And this is then where the story starts getting interesting, because from there, she was like, one day, listen, let's go get some food. We went into the town, we got food. When we came back, there were these two men, and there were we were in a veld with high grass. The grass is pretty much as tall as I am.
So this is, just to paint a picture, this is quite a rural area.
Yes.
It's
there's nothing. There's nothing. There's no
literally
city.
just hills of
grass and corpies, and there's nothing. There's not much. And it's pretty much between Kimberley and Joburg, because our final destination was Johannesburg.
Yes.
But we ended up, these two men came, they asked for money, she didn't have, they had this food, and then they ended up raping her in front of me, and it was horrible. And like, I remember.
And you still have memory of that? Because
I
mean, that's really traumatic.
And I remember her screaming, even when I was later adopted by my family, I would still wake up screaming from her screams.
From nightmares.
Yeah. Anyway, so that was hellish. Sure. And then she cried, and she was in trauma for about 10 or 20 days. I can't remember the time frame, because I think as a young kid, you don't understand.
Yeah, you don't have a concept of time. Yeah.
Then from there, she decided, no, she wants to leave now. And we packed our stuff and we went. And then she got to this other man's house, and he was quite fancy to say, or off or whatever, but he had this big house, but also it was also in the middle of nowhere, and the house was predominantly glass, which is, I don't know,
strange for that area, right?
Yes,
that type of
and
living.
that time, that area.
Yeah, that's strange.
So also the thing is in my mind is, I don't know if my mind created these images, or this is what I perceived of him. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
as a kid, smaller things could seem quite grand.
And
especially at.
But then this man, he used to beat her all the time. He used to beat me, and it was bad, and it was just beating after beating after beating. Can't touch anything, can't touch the stereo, can't sit on the couches, can't do this, and he used to always beat us.
So what did you do? Did you used to hide?
Like, I used to just hide and cry and be, just try to be wherever. I try to stay outside most of the time, because outside you couldn't get into trouble. Yeah. And then one day this man went to work, and she was like, well, enough is enough. So she burnt his whole house down, everything.
Oh, wow.
And then we fled, and then we got into Johannesburg. So I still remember coming into Joburg, because the vision of coming into Joburg, so we obviously got by train.
Yeah.
It's exactly the same vision that you watch when American movies are always like, oh, I'm going to the big city in New York.
Big city with the skyline.
And the skyscrapers and all this. Yeah. And we drove into Johannesburg, but it was at night, and the lights and it was just magical. I remember.
Also coming from
Kimberley.
Kimberley, which is,
Diamond Town, small,
Diamond Town,
nothing happening.
Literally mountains.
It's not like what it is today. It was literally, there was nothing. So getting there was, wow. So there we got into Joburg. We ended up staying in a little town in the west called Unified. And it was opposite. It was next to the train tracks, and that's where she settled down. But now all the abuse and everything that had happened to her, she started to pretty much go down south. So she started drinking a lot, started doing drugs, and till today, I think just the reason why I've never done heavy drugs. I've smoked weed like every other kid.
Of course,
I've taken shrooms maybe once, but I've never done anything and I ended up, because I could see her and the way she was so
it's
bad.
Traumatic, and that is traumatic in itself. As a kid.
So then I met push forward. I met my brother in primary school. Me and him became really good mates. We became best friends, and that was 1991, 92. So in South Africa, black and white people were not trusting of each other.
Yeah.
And my brother was like he kind of like, everybody wouldn't play with me. Nobody would sit next to me. Nobody would talk to me. My brother was
Now,
like,
you were in a predominantly white school.
or only, it was me
An
and
Afrikaans school.
Afrikaans, so it was an Afrikaans white school. So me and him were, me and Big Boy were the only two black kids. And it was a rule that the government had put into place to say, if there are black children in your area and they need to go to school, you need to allow, you cannot say no. So me and Big Boy, well, I was there then. Big Boy came about 7 months later, 8 months later.
It didn't change the fact how people treated you anyway.
It was bad.
Even though that was the rule. You know, kids were taught, we don't mix.
Yeah, we don't mix. And it was like, no one would talk to me. I would eat by myself. And then luckily my brother, when he was there, he would invite, he'd come play with us and come do this. And he was very friendly compared to all the other kids. And it was just, so then we and him became best friends. I kind of started staying at his house because I never wanted to go home. So most kids, at the end of the day, you want to go home.
Yeah, of course.
I absolutely loved school because at school it was just kids. And there was this idea
and you could be normal.
You could be normal. You could play.
be
You could have
normal.
fun. The worst thing about school was homework. But at home, I was being abused by
So
Portia.
where were you? Were you still, okay, so you were still with Portia at the time.
At the time.
On your own living, And where was your dad?
So he was.
He just disappeared.
He was still in
few years
Kimberley.
back.
He was still in Kimberley, and I always asked her when are we going to see him. When are we going to see him? Never saw him. Never came. Never kind of. He was just never there. So that was kind of hard. And then
Of course,
I kind of had Shawl, which was the mate and friend and looking after me and there for me. So I kind of detached myself to him, and then the family kind of slowly through these processes they kind of adopted me because Portia also went. She went mal. She went crazy. She like the drugs became heavier. People started looking for them. There was fights would break out. And I had one school uniform, so I would like wear it, finish school at like 5 because I didn't want to go home. I'd walk home. I think it was like 9 or 10 kilometers. I'd walk home and then I'd wash my clothes and then I'd hang it up. But in winter, the problem was the clothes wouldn't dry. So in the mornings, I would wear wet clothes and I would walk to school in the cold. And till today, I think this is why I used to get so sick as a kid because my immune system was just shot. I used to get sick all the time. Yeah, so like little crazy things like that, like would just make me, And
well, I can only imagine that even to today, there must be parts of that still affect you because. Going through that as a child, you've got kids, I've got kids.
Yeah.
Like, we know how much love and warmth and how much kids actually need to be stable.
Yeah.
So, and this is why I wanted to talk to you today because you are not only just a normal person, but you're an incredible person. So going through what you did through that childhood trauma, I mean, to where you are today is just phenomenal.
Yeah.
So what was it like going at home? Did you ever get meals at home? Like, did Portia ever cook?
No, she didn't really. I don't know. I've got to be honest. You know what's weird is I didn't actually ever think about that. I've never thought about what we ate. We just.
There probably wasn't anything.
No, well, when there was food, we ate.
Very little.
Very little. But I remember, like, when I would go to Charles' house, it was like it was amazing because there was things that I could never imagine. There was always unlimited cold drink or food and whatever. But I never thought about what I ate at home. Actually, I remember so Portia ended up started becoming resentful because she would be like, "Oh, you're not staying at your white people's house, or the whites not looking after you. Now they've sent you back here. Now we must look after you." And it became kind of that. And then, like, even after me not liking her because she took me from my father, the relationship between us became even worse.
Yeah.
And then when I got older, she came back at like 16 because she knew where my parents stayed. And she came back and she was like, "Okay, Lucky's 16 now. I want him to start working for me to make money." And my mom was like, "Oh, you effing kidding."
So fast forward all those years, you now have met your best friend at school. Right? He's an Afrikaans guy, white guy. And he's one person that accepted you in that school because at the time,
especially
white,
in the Afrikaans culture, it's kind of in like probably in the 50s if a German and a Jewish got married or became best friends.
100%. It was the absolute taboo.
Yeah, it's taboo and very like,
100%.
Oh my God, kind of. So we became really close. So actually in primary school, my brother then taught me how to play rugby. So he hated rugby. So my dad was a big rugby player, Stellenbosch first team captain. Afrikaans kid. Then my oldest brother didn't really like rugby. He was very clever man, but then doesn't enjoy playing rugby. My mom always used to joke and say Philip was very soft. Not soft, but he's a heartwarming, loving kid, but not. Some kids are just not made for that sport.
100%,
Rugby's it's either you like it or you don't.
Yeah,
There's no in
100%,
between, you know. So then Charles was a big kid and he played rugby, but he played it only to please my father, not to enjoy it.
Because he had the body and the build for it,
yes,
but he
the
actually
body and the
hated
build.
it,
So he is the quintessential American football movie where the father wants him to play and he plays, but he hates it.
He hates it.
It's
literally like a movie story.
He could not have hated rugby more if he wanted to. Like it was.
Shit.
So then I saw how. So he was the first kid in Florida, which is a massive rugby primary school, to play first team in Standard 3. So then I saw this and I saw him. Then I see my brothers and sisters becoming prefects and wearing the jackets and the things at the bottom. So I see this and I want to become this. This is I like this now.
Now this is your adoptive family. You're now completely integrated into
I'm
this
integrated
family.
into
like
them.
this is your family.
So now I'm like, I want to be like these people. So I start to, but now my marks aren't great because I don't have any primary school. I didn't have pre-primary. I don't have any. We didn't learn ones and twos. I remember the entrance exam. Sorry to veer, but the entrance exam for me to get into Florida, I had to name all the colors. And every color I got right except blue and red. I used to always swap them for some reason. I don't know why. Yeah. But then I'm like, okay, I'm going to start. So then my brother says, okay, I'll teach you how to play rugby. So he teaches me and he makes me hard. Then I'm like, I'm thin and I'm like, every time I play rugby, I get sore on my shoulders because I can't tackle. So he's like, okay, well, we got to sort this out because tackling is obviously the main part of rugby. So he straps like pillows to a tree and he makes me hit the pillow with my shoulders 50 times, right shoulder, left shoulder. And then I become hard. Then I become the second kid to play first team in Standard 3. Then I start, I played at the time, there was a thing called Nike All-Stars, so which was quite a big thing. That prepared you for Cravenwick. I played Cravenwick, then got a scholarship to Saints. So then my career, my life of succeeding, because the seed gets planted in your head as a kid. When you see your dad do something or your mom and you want to do like them, dad rides a bike, I want to ride a bike. Dad does well. If a dad runs a marathon and he gets a medal, my son saw these medals, my medals, and he's like, Dad, I want this. I'm like, oh, you have to do well. Then so now the seed is planted in his head that he must try, one, he must finish, two, and then he can be rewarded. So 100%. That's the...
Yeah,
so
and
now,
I think you tap on something really important there.
Yeah.
I'm going to stop you there for a second. A lot of the time, the reason why people fail and don't succeed at their goals is because they don't finish.
Yeah.
They wait for it to be too perfect and they're too scared. Like fear completely holds them back and they never finish. So
there's the fear.
Just finish.
But there's also the thing is, you're not going to start if you don't... Like we've got kids.
Yeah.
So we've both got 2 kids.
Yeah.
Our second children wouldn't do the things they did as quickly as they did it if they didn't have the first one. Do you see? Yeah. So you have to have an example. So Charles plays rugby. I want to play rugby.
Yes.
And I'm going to... So I eventually become better than Charles, but that's because he set me up for it. But if I was the first to do it, I'm not going to. Do you understand? So it's the idea that you have a figure now for some reason, and I don't understand
it. It's inspiring. You were inspired.
Yes.
So you've come from this really traumatic background.
Yeah.
You've seen what life can be.
Yeah.
And that's where personal development comes into play. Because once you see it, once you see what you can actually do and how many opportunities there are in the world and how beautiful it really is, you can't unsee it.
Yeah. It was, you know, what was weirdest for me is when I played Cravenwick, they made me captain. I was never captain in primary school in any of my teams. I played first team, but I was never captain. So when they made me captain in Cravenwick, I think the one reason as well is because I was the only bloody kid that could speak Afrikaans and English, because they had at the time Craven was built of white guys who could speak Afrikaans, black guys who could speak English, and obviously vernac, but the two can never integrate with each other.
You could
so
do
then
both.
you had me who could speak English and Afrikaans, English from because watching bloody TV all the time, but Afrikaans because I grew up in Africa. So they had this, and they're like, okay, well, he's perfect. And I was quite motivational and let's go, let's do it, we can do it, whatever. But it's that aspect of seeing something and then going, okay, well, I see it. So if he can do it, then I can do it. So you kind of replicate it, and then then also I believe the success thing is as well as you first emulate is the term.
Yeah.
You do it like somebody else.
It's called molding as well. So you mold successful people. So whatever they do,
you do.
You copy literally, and you emulate what they do.
Then you become successful. So then you go, okay, I know how to create success, but now how do I do it to make it mine, creating your USP?
100%.
Then you go, okay, I'm going to do that.
In your way.
But
your spin and your flavor
your
on
flavor,
it.
you add to it.
100%.
Yeah. So that's also kind of, so then in high school, but now what's funny is in primary school, I was highly achieving in that aspect. So rugby, Craven Week, scholarship.
Which is amazing considering where you've come from.
Yeah. So,
then
in high school, reality kind of sets in, because in primary school, I'm tall, I'm athletic, I'm playing. In high school now, everybody's catching up. So now I start to see, because I also believe in primary school you don't have to try as hard because kids don't know as much. Yeah. But in high school, then everybody starts to come into their own and the competition becomes more. So now you're adding more factors into it. So then you have that. So then I start to lose as a kid in high school. I'm playing Craven Week, but and I've said this twice.
Yeah.
Maybe in podcasts. I played Craven Week in standard 5 because I was the best in that position.
Yeah.
I played in under 16 because I was black.
Yeah.
And that hurt me. I know it, and I will say it. But we are in South Africa, we're in a good place because we had to start with BE. We had to integrate and give players the opportunity. But the concept of BE that people don't understand is that if me and you go for a job and we are both as good as each other, so you both got the same degrees, got the same honors, got the same PhDs, then I should get the job because previously my people were disadvantaged.
Of course,
so that's fair. That's the concept of BE.
Yeah.
But the execution isn't
necessarily how it's meant to be.
No. The people aren't executing it like that. They're going, okay, well, he's black, so let's give it to him. It's like, but he's not as good as her.
Do you
understand?
think that affected your performance? Because if you're in a victim state of mind, right, which at this point you would have been. So in your mind, you're only in this team because you're black, right? So in some sense, you're a victim now. In some ways.
In some sense,
because it impacts your confidence. Now, in your mind, are you saying, I'm actually not good enough. I'm only here because of my skin color.
Yeah.
How did you overcome that? Did you just carry on flunking or did you try
I carried on playing, but I didn't put in the work. I should have. I should have put more work in. I should have trained harder. I should have become stronger. But high school has so many factors as a kid, and there's girls, there's parties, so I was weak-minded in that, and I think it's because the success came so easy for me in primary school that I thought it was going to be the same, but it isn't. It's a complete different ball game. So the success is easy in primary school. For instance, all the guys that I played Craven Week in under 13 and in under 16, none of them play professionally now. Maybe 2 guys. It's because we were kind of they call it like early you and then
flourish, and then
you become this nothing. And it's all these American movies as well. They have these, I was the prom king and it's like, what are you doing now? Oh, I'm fixing tires at some place. And no offense to people fixing tires, I'm just saying it's it's the idea of that. And even if you're if you're in somewhere and you are doing really well in primary school, it's cool. But if you're not doing well, don't worry about it. Because you will succeed as long as you continue. Like, it's not the high school is not the be all and end all. Like I thought it was.
But at that age,
you think it is. Because at that age,
it is at that age because it's your whole world.
It's exactly. There's nothing else for you. You don't thinking about tax and this and that.
And how you're going to buy your next meal or pay your rent.
You're thinking chicks. high school, rugby, and whatever. But
there's a good lesson in that, because the one thing that people always ask me when I'm coaching is they say, well, what makes people successful? Like, what is the golden nugget that makes people successful? And the one thing that I always say to them is that successful people are always persistent.
Yeah.
So failure cannot cope with persistence, right? Now, when we're younger, we're taught that if we don't do something right or we fail, we get punished for it. Like, it's wrong. You've failed. And that stems into your adulthood. You work in a big corporate, you mess up the books, or you do something wrong, or you flunk a presentation, like, everybody talks about you. You're going to fail your KPIs, my friend, because you're freaking failing. Forget that bonus. And I had that. I mean, I literally got screamed at work years ago because I didn't put the cost right in this test order that I was doing for these products, and it cost a lot more than what I had planned. And I literally got screamed at. And if I think back to that, you know, if we treat failure as this means all and end all, and it's like, you're not going to succeed because you've failed, nobody's ever going to succeed, right? So really successful people look at failure as a temporary flaw in their plan. All it means is that you have to learn more. What don't you know that you did, you know, that you can learn and become better at until you succeed?
They say that saying is, and the saying goes, failure is just another, it's another chance to try again.
100%.
You know what I'm saying?
Just gotta learn. It's a temporary flaw.
When I was young, I was petrified of failure. And I told a CEO this. I had a conversation with the CEO. It's my best mate's mom, and I said to her, I just don't like it. And she's like, failure is the best thing that you can do, because
100%.
it teaches us to, okay, cool, let's do it again. But then let's not do it again like we did. Because if you continuously do it like that, then obviously you're an idiot. That's no offense to you. But
do the
because
same thing
if you
10 times
expecting the same result. But
100%.
if you fail and go, and that's the difference between successful people as well, is that they will fail, cool, let's do it again. Fail, okay, cool, let's do it again. It didn't go, don't go left, don't go forward, let's go right. And that's the difference as well, as I didn't succeed well in primary and high school. And I'm talking academics now. When I got to varsity, didn't know what I was going to do. I got varsity clearance. I passed. I was on the skin of my chest. But I got varsity clearance. I had 2 varsities, but I ended up going to one Vega. And when I got to Vega, I started to excel. Why? Because I didn't know what I wanted to do, but when I got there, this was it. This was the thing for me. This was this is where I needed to be.
You found your groove.
Everybody was going to the UCTs and the VITs and I thought, oh man, I'm such a loser. I'm going to this small college that no one knows of, never heard of, or whatever. But it was, those weren't right for me. This was right for me.
But also that was, you know, back then being creative maybe wasn't as seen as this crazy successful, you know, your parents would say to you, go and be a lawyer, go and be a doctor. And I think the educational system's actually
it's bullshit.
Archaic.
No,
it doesn't help people find their strengths and who they are and you know, excel. But
it's a 200-year-old system. We designed it to create factory workers.
It's designed for employees.
It's designed for factory workers, for people that work 8 to 5, and we're still
100%.
using it, and people are going, why are we using it? Even our children now, they should not be learning like that, because some of them aren't like that. If you put a child in a thing and they draw, let them draw. Let them do, because that's what they want to go into. If they like music, let them create that. Not, everybody must do. Like, okay, I will say this, like, people get angry and they're like, oh, but why should we do maths? And I say, well, I don't, math necessarily not for everybody. And you're not going to become a mathematician or a scientist, whatever, but maths is the idea that you're solving problems. And if you don't know, if you're going to go, and that's the basis of maths, it teaches you to go, okay,
problems.
I can't work this out this way. I can't work it out that way. Okay, let me try that way. And if you, and that's why you should do maths, because it's the fundamentals of solving problems.
100%.
So, maybe like geography might not be for you, or history. Like my wife hates history, but I love it. But it's not for everyone. So, but the whole school system is, I mean, that's a bloody episode on its own.
But I think it's interesting that you talk about Vega. So Vega is, just for everyone listening, is a really big advertising and branding
communication.
College.
It's branding, communication, marketing, digital. So it's pretty much,
And I also studied actually at some time at Vega. It's a brilliant school. So it feeds people directly into the working system, which is fantastic as well. But it's interesting that you mentioned that's where you found your groove, because fast forward a few years later, you've still done creative things your entire life. It really is the essence of you. And one of the topics that I was going to chat to you about was the ability to harness creativity to overcome obstacles.
Yeah.
Now, people underestimate how powerful creativity can be, right? Firstly, if you've gone through any challenges in your life, whatever it may be, wherever you're from, whoever's listening, you can use creativity to overcome
something,
hurt or pain or obstacles that you've gone through. So it's therapeutic in itself, right?
Yeah.
But it's also so inspiring to other people. So for me, your story, because now you've gone to Vega, you then went into you're a comedian, TV host, radio presenter, you're like a brand phenomenon, and you did all of that with wit and creativeness and telling this amazing story that you went through, but you used it in a way that didn't hold you back.
Yeah.
You didn't let that hold you back, what you went through and what you had to adjust to, and, going through school and taking that dip where you thought, you're a failure, now you're only in teams because of your skin color, etc.
Yeah.
You harnessed that through to your adulthood.
Yeah, listen, it's the victor or victim mentality. So you can either be a victim or you can be a victor, and find it. I think so. Listen, creativity has helped me a massive load because it's made me kind of think outside the box. And there's this one story that I tell friends of mine. So the first day of Vega, so I come from going to an all boys school, and it's very, everyone's private
Snooty
school, snooty, and but being snooty, it's also very boys school, like blah 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 blah, and
like boys rugby, boots,
boys rugby and butts and bros and my shona, my boots, and then I leave the school and then I go into varsity and I'm sitting in this lecture hall and it's like in this podium and everybody sits up like this, and as we're sitting there, these women are walking in and it's tattoos and piercings, and my mind is blown. I'm like, oh my God, yes, this is where I park my car. So they were sitting there, and this lecturer comes in and she says, the dean speaks, this lecturer comes in and she says, for 12 years, they've made you learn the rules, understand the rules, and then apply the rules. And this is how society's built everything. You must know, you must learn, you must understand, and you must follow the rules. What we learn here at Vega is that we are going to teach you how to break the rules.
Love that.
And then they go, and it's not the idea of committing a crime, but it's the idea that when you look at something and it's red, or it's a sign, or it's a logo, it's a whatever, you will completely think differently of everything that you see from now on. You will see things not how everyone else sees them, but you will see it how a creative person. And till today, I remember listening to that and I was like, oh, okay, cool. And then like I left, and like it was that entire year, and every year after that, everything
was new.
Mind was new. The mind kind of changed, and every aspect that I've taken, comedy, radio, I've always, so people always say, oh, what's the difference between your radio show and somebody else's? And I've always said, well, we always do everything differently. Because in radio, from morning to afternoon, if you're listening to the shows, everyone's going to talk about the topical thing. Michael Jackson's died. Michael Jackson's died. Hey, don't know if you know, Michael Jackson's died. Everybody, Michael Jackson's died. Here's Thriller, my favorite song. Everyone will do the same thing. What if, you change it up and you go, what is the first time you heard Michael Jackson? What is a song that takes you back to, so you got to do it completely different. So that's what I've always applied to everything and every aspect. In comedy, it was telling, because let's be honest, you will 100% come across the same joke or tell a joke that's similar to another comedian. Trevor Noah and I have a similar story because his dad is white. His mom was black.
Yes, so they called him the day walker.
The day walker. So there will be similarities that we have.
100%.
Me and him, because I was adopted by a white family, but I'm black and I'm not white enough. I'm not black enough. That's exactly his story as well.
100%. So, and he did the same thing. He used creativity in his comedy.
It's exactly
to overcome that. I remember watching Trevor Noah years ago. In fact, I think you and I went to one of his shows at. Wasn't at Monty?
No, I don't
know. I remember watching him for years, and what people don't see or remember is, they see Trevor Noah now. He's a huge success. Of course, he's known around the world. but they don't see the years that he spent
Yeah.
on that
Grafting,
stage, grafting, dealing with the societal beliefs and crap that people have.
Yeah.
And he had to overcome all of that. They just see the end result and they think, oh, here's this famous person.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
But the one thing that I think is really interesting that you bring up is in your belief system, right? You know, you mentioned how being creative, you learn to break the rules. And Vega, I know Vega. Vega was
Yeah.
one of those schools that was all about breaking the rules. They were
Yeah.
like, we don't do anything normal.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think you've done that subconsciously your entire life, right? So a belief, you know, is like we said, it's how you live, how you love, you
Yeah.
know, how you see the world. It's the lenses that you see the world through.
Yeah.
And it's the rules that you live by. But through going through this creative process that you have, you've learned to break all those rules.
Yeah.
Not only from your work perspective and your career where you've done comedy and radio and all of that, but also I think your personal beliefs, you've learned to break through them. Any disempowering beliefs that hold you back, like maybe you thought you weren't good enough, or maybe you thought, you know, because of your background you couldn't succeed or get to where you want, or maybe you thought you weren't funny enough. I think the fact that you were so creative and you learned to change your mindset to see the world differently, you learned to overcome a lot of those disempowering beliefs that you might have had growing up.
Yeah, there's and I think those beliefs only came later because so when I was playing rugby, there was moments where, you know, there were white guys or Afrikaans guys who were like, yo, you shouldn't play, this is not your sport, blah blah blah, but I never cared about that. I don't know why.
It's a white man's sport.
Yeah,
you know.
then the older I got, you also become more subconscious of who you are and everything you do and how you look, and you know what I'm saying? Because as a kid, you just play. Kids don't care what they wear.
The vanity kind of kicks in as you get older.
So you get older,
And the
you start to then
Yeah.
I started to when I did stand up comedy, I did a set at Kitchener's. Now, comedians, if you're watching this, they know Kitchener's is ruthless. Okay. I did a set at Kitchener's, and Kitchener's is called New Material Night. So you go there to do new material, you test it out.
Yeah.
If it works, you take it and go do it somewhere else.
Oh my gosh.
But Kitchener's is so ruthless because it's a woke society. It's very woke. It's these young, like, brand new Gen Z, and you can't say that kind of nonsense.
Yeah.
I did a set there. I'd done a set before there. I was okay, not great. I'd done another set there. I was kind of fine. I did a set there. I bombed. When I say to you I bombed, I went home, I lay in a ball, and I just rocked back. I didn't do comedy for 2 months, For 2 months. I didn't get on stage for 2 months.
What happened? Did nobody laugh? Did people boo you?
Nothing worked. Nothing. Like every joke didn't work. And I remember Robbie Collins, who's massive comedian, won Comedian of the Year this year. I said, yo, that was tough. And he said, listen, there was a couple of good stuff there. Like I think it's, because also in comedy it's not what you say, it's how you say it.
Yeah.
So it's how you deliver the material.
100%.
Sometimes you say it and you didn't have the right inflection on the right word, and the joke didn't land. It's all about timing. Comedy's all about timing. And he said, yo, listen, there's a couple of stuff there. And I said,
Oh
dude, that was brutal. And then he said to me, like 3 months later or 4 months later, he saw me and he goes, where have you been? And I said, I couldn't do comedy for 2 months. And he laughed and he's like, was that not really that bad? I said, Robbie, I couldn't pull it together. Like I had to leave. I had to get in my car. I was still going to watch everybody else, but I was so traumatized that I got in the car and I left. And,
oh my gosh.
when you lose, the difference between champions and losers it's how you take that loss.
100%.
You got to bounce back. So you can, David Goggins, every champion will say, it's fine. You've lost.
Yeah. What did you learn?
You can say to your coach, Coach, I'm sorry, I had a bad time. I need 30 minutes. But when those 30 minutes are up, you come back and we get back to work.
100%.
And that's how it is. And it hit me hard. It was.
It also knocks your confidence.
Yeah.
But I think
you start to question.
100%.
Am I good
but
enough?
what I really want people to know is that, people think that they're born with confidence, that you might have confidence or you might not have confidence and other people have confidence and you wish that you had that, but it's a myth. So confidence is actually built.
Yeah.
So going through what you went through, that experience and those emotions and that process, even though you flunked and you flunked bad, right?
Yeah.
And I can only imagine when people aren't laughing and you're standing there, like what
There's-
that must feel like. There
yeah.
couldn't be anything worse,
No,
right?
I felt everything in the world that.
Oh.
I
All
don't-
the feelings
I don't
at
wish that.
once,
I don't
like-
wish that on anyone.
100%.
Yeah.
But you did
Yeah.
it once.
Yeah.
Maybe you did it twice. You
Yeah.
did it again and again and again until it became seamless.
Yeah.
And I think I also watched you through that process. I remember some of your first comedy shows
Yo.
and how your confidence level was, and I could see you were sweating behind the scenes. Like I
Yeah,
could see
just
that you were
shaking.
because I know you, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah.
and I could see how nervous you were. And then fast forward a few years, you
Yeah.
were on fire.
Yeah, yeah.
Completely different person. But it's because you built that confidence through action all the
Yeah.
time, despite flunking here and there. So what?
Yeah.
Like people need to get over failing. People need to get over that humiliation and
But I think it
You know?
hurts us as people.
But it
I
hurts.
Think it does.
Yeah.
It hurts, but it is.
doesn't make it easy. I never said it was easy.
No.
It's still difficult.
But how do you teach children that? Because if we're taught as children that it's okay to fail, we'll bounce back. Because when we
Yeah.
were growing up, you weren't allowed to fail, and that's
No.
why I think where the problem comes from. So our
Yeah,
generation,
100%.
you don't. So my dad, it's terrible. I tell the story, but my dad comes and watches me play Craven Hook under 16. I had a bad game. Every single time I played a game,
Yeah.
we would run through it. What happened? How many tackles? How many missed
Oh my
tackles?
gosh.
How,
Okay,
what
that's
happened?
intense.
It's hectic.
That's quite intense.
So he comes and he says to me, if you're going to play like that again, I'm not going to come and watch. Now, as a kid, it was
that's tough.
It was tough. It was tough to hear that. It was
Sure.
tough. And I was kind of like that was, I got to pull it together. And it was a
that's
bad game, mate. It was, I would just, and also the thing is, I knew I was playing because I was black, because
Yeah.
everybody was faster, stronger. So the thing is, remember, when you're playing Craven, you're not playing against another school. You're playing against the best kids in the province.
Yeah.
So you're playing
Different
against
level.
people that are, these are oaks that are eventually one day might play Springbok. So that
Yeah.
was it. And I remember that. The thing is, he should have been like, and I will say this, my dad was a phenomenal father. And,
Yeah.
I always say to people, the only way we're going to make better men is by being a better father than our fathers. So if your father was good, be great. If your father was great, be phenomenal.
100%,
So
I
you know
love
what I'm saying?
that.
So my dad
Yeah.
was a good father, but he was also a father that grew up in the age where women did the kids, men
Yeah.
drank beer.
Men
and
were
bar.
men and-
Men were
yeah,
men, yeah.
yeah.
God, those
And
were the-
tough, you
Those
know?
were probably the days.
Like
I'm
men,
kidding. I'm
men
kidding.
aren't allowed to cry, you know.
Yeah.
Like that's,
So the idea is, when he said that to me, I would never say that to my son. I would say to him, he falls down his bike and I pick him up and I explained to him the other day, it's okay. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
As long as
Just
you
get
try
up.
again.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay. And now my son and my daughter both fall and I go, are you okay? And they go, I'm fine. And they get up.
Yeah.
So I'm ingraining that idea that it's
Yeah.
okay to fall.
Yeah.
And then I ask, are you okay? Because why, you can't say, damn it, you fell.
Yeah.
You got to
Yeah.
you got to have that positive encouragement, because later on,
Yeah.
when they fail in work, they'll
They
go.
need it.
So, and also,
Yeah.
like when at work, when I mess up, guys, that was me. It was my fault. I
Yeah, just
apologize,
own it.
because
Yeah.
the biggest thing that's happening in society, people are not taking
Accountability.
Yes.
100%. And I think it is about, not only at work, but in your life, is that you need to realize you are 100% accountable and responsible for where you are,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So cause and effect.
Yeah.
Anything that you do, even in your internal world, inside, anything you do affects whatever's around you.
Yeah.
So people that stay in that victim conscious, mind state are always a victim.
Yeah.
That's why they never admit when they've done something wrong, or
Yeah.
it was someone else. They blame, that oak didn't do his job, or
Yeah.
I didn't make that money because
Yeah.
oh my God, my parents always taught me to do this, like it's their fault.
Yeah.
So you're finding people to blame, but in actual fact, you're giving away the control. The minute you realize, or you tell yourself that you are not responsible for your own life, you will never succeed. You'll never grow.
And so there's this massive discussion that's happening now in society where people are going, you gotta love yourself. And I 100% understand that.
Yeah.
But also you gotta be hard on yourself. You gotta stop telling yourself that
Yeah.
life's gonna be okay, you're doing well, whatever. If you're watching 6 seasons of something in a week and you're asking yourself why you're not successful, maybe stop watching 6 seasons of something.
100%.
Because you know
got
what
to
I'm
take
saying?
responsibility for yourself.
Like I say to my wife, I'm like, no, listen, I think I need to work. I need to do some work tonight on something like on the side hustle.
Yeah.
Because if I do an hour
Yeah.
a night and then I can still watch the show, fine. Because at least I've done
But
an
it
hour.
adds up.
But
Yeah.
I can't do every night watch a show and then expect to be creating and making millions, because oaks don't do that. You know, Steve Jobs wasn't watching Friends and then
Or Game of Thrones.
you know, because you have to. You gotta say to yourself, and the aspect of you gotta love yourself is you will love yourself when you know you're putting in the work, you're grinding, and then you're going, oh my gosh, like
Or
this
love
is why I'm
yourself
here.
enough
To
to put pressure on yourself
put pressure
and
on
become
yourself
responsible.
and be, yeah,
you
exactly,
know?
yeah.
The one thing that's interesting that you say is, you know, instead of watching like the Game of Thrones or scrolling on social, and this is what a lot of people do, we numb ourselves, right?
Yeah.
So something that we're procrastinating on that really scares us, actually, because that's where procrastinating comes from. It has nothing to do with the task that you're working on.
Yeah.
It's actually based on fear.
Because we're afraid to fail.
We're afraid to fail, 100%. So what we do is we justify and we say, oh, you know what, I've worked so hard today, I'm so tired, I'm actually going to just watch an episode of Game of Thrones, I'm going to scroll on social.
Yeah.
So temporarily you feel relief, right?
Yeah. And
The
then,
next day, that anxiety is back in 10 times worse because you're not actually dealing with the problem.
Yeah.
But the one thing that I always say as well to people is that if you really want to be successful, like you say now, building a side hustle, right? Now, lots of people in today's age are building side hustles. Like the world has just changed.
You have to. Things are
you don't
too
have to
expensive.
just do one thing.
Yeah.
You can do whatever you want, you know? But what happens is, and a lot of people fail, is because what they don't realize is you have to do what you don't like.
yeah.
You have to work at night. You have to make that unfamiliar feeling of getting your laptop out instead of the habit of watching Game of Thrones. You have to go and sit and work, right? And that's unfamiliar and it's uncomfortable. Nobody wants to do that.
It's the whole, what's that saying? If you do what is hard, your life will be easy. If you do what is easy, your life will be hard.
Your life will be hard, 100%.
Yeah.
And I have so many people that they say to me, you know, Jen, I want to be earning 100K a month or this or that, and these are my goals, and I want to start this business. And I tell them to put a goal plan together. Really simple. Just do it on a page. It'll take you 10 minutes, right? Give me all the detail. What is it that you want to achieve, and be specific. 2 weeks later, they come back, they've got no goals. I say, guys, if you're not willing to even do a goal sheet, how the hell are you going to put in the time and effort to succeed and get where you want?
Yeah, I mean, we did Jen and I and our friendship group, we did goals on a piece of paper, and if you want to, this is actually the best one because it forces you to do it. And what you do is you write a goal down on a piece of paper. You put it in an envelope and you give it to your best friend. And you say to them, at the end of the year, let's have a drink and see how many of these goals I've achieved. Because when your best friend has it, you have no choice but to do it. You're accountable. Because if they go in and they go, oh, it says here you were going to ride the Argus. Dude, I didn't see you cycle once. Oh, it says here that you were going to do this. You know what I'm saying? But if you stop, but if you know somebody has your goals in their hands, believe me. And it's a fear thing. It's a fear thing. It's
100%.
It's that sometimes you got to scare yourself into doing it. So whatever the way you're going to get yourself to go, do it. There's this thing I said to a mate of mine. I said, there are these oaks that go, so somebody was saying to me like, yo, bro, sometimes I'm like, I need to go for a run or I need to, but come Friday and Thursday, I'd rather have a beer. So I said, okay. I said to him, buy yourself a sneaker, a Ziploc bag. You put your sneakers in so that they don't wear and tear. And I said, take your sneakers and put them in your beer fridge. I said, because every time you open your beer fridge and you see your sneakers, you should tell yourself,
you'll know.
Go for a run. Because you know that you should rather go for a run than having a beer. You know what I'm saying?
100%.
So have that, because eventually it becomes
a habit.
But in the beginning, it's about the mindset that, I want a beer. I really do. I really want a brewski, but I need to go for that run.
You have to rewire your mind.
You know what I'm saying? And the older we are, it's harder to do it. That's why it's easier to learn languages when you're a kid. It's easier to train yourself to do something. But
because
when you're older,
you see the world as this magical place.
Yes, and your mind doesn't know, so it just takes it in. But now you got to rewire. That's actually, it's rewiring your brain.
It's rewiring. And I think that's what people don't understand is that, if you really want to be successful, you have to change current habits. What you're doing now is not working. That's why you're broke as shit and can't pay your rent, So you have to learn to change that habit. And it's interesting that you mentioned the shoes in the beer fridge, because what I often advise to people is you got to change your inner world, right?
Yeah.
Because that will
Change the outer
that
world.
will change your outer world, but also change things in your physical world. If you make a declaration to someone, so let's say you have a really big goal and you want to start this business, right?
Yeah.
Go and tell somebody, because when it's out in the world,
Yeah.
then you're like, wait a minute,
But-
now I've got to hit this goal, you know.
But there's a it was Harvard or Stanford who did a study on that, and they said it's very bad to tell people your goals. You know why? Because it releases the same hormone as you achieving that goal. So they say you must never tell someone your goal.
Interesting.
So writing it down, they have it, but they haven't seen it.
Yeah.
So then in a year's time that you then open it together.
You know
But
it's coming.
If you tell someone, if I say, Jen, listen, I'm gonna start a business on selling beans. Now my mind is acting the same as I've achieved that goal, but I haven't. But by telling you I feel good about it, then I go and do nothing. So it's
Well, that's the key, is to act, right?
is to act. So the thing is,
Dreaming does nothing for anybody.
So it's just weird because
Hopeless.
I used to always tell people my goals, and then I read the study and they're like, it's the worst thing you can do. It is, and I listen. I mean, these Stanford guys, they know more than me. Let's be honest. So I was like, okay. So it is.
Well, I
quite
think
weird.
it separates the dreamers from the doers. You know, dreaming is hopeless, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to stop people from dreaming, but
Yeah,
doing
that's-
only dreaming is hopeless. You have to act.
Yeah. You
And
gotta.
you know, it's like we spoke about that fear. Being comfortable is also the death of success.
Yeah.
You know, you've got to push yourself, you've got to act, you've got to do things. But,
Yeah.
you know, you do get a lot of people that stay in that dream state and tell people their goals, but don't do much about it. You know?
So I'm struggling this year. I mean, as much as you make it sound like I've succeeded a lot, and when I look at myself, I kind of go, I have, and it's great, and I've done it. I've gone onto stage and did it. I've won comedy competitions. I've been onto radio. I've done the biggest shows on radio, but I feel, to be
What's
honest,
next?
I feel like I've achieved nothing. I have to be honest with you, and maybe it's because I'm always setting myself up to give
100%.
more. But
100%, which is good.
It's good. It's great. It's
Yeah.
fantastic. But and I spoke to my wife about it, and she goes, "Maybe you're being hard on yourself." I'm like, I'm not really, because I'm in my 30s. We are now in the time where we should be making things happen. Because like the success one might be here, but in 10 years from now, we should have a business where we are going, this is when it started, when I was 35 or 34 or whatever, and this is where it's happening. And we see how we got there. But I feel like even that, I don't know what I'm doing. You know what I'm saying? I'm lost.
But you don't always have
someone
to
who's-
know. You don't always have to have all your shit figured out. And I think we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to do that. You know, you say you don't feel successful for what you've done, but back then, those were your ambitions, and what you achieved was huge.
Yeah.
As you get older, your goals change.
Yeah, no, they do. They
You know,
do.
your
They
benchmark
become
changes
bigger,
and it grows. And so growing never stops.
Yeah.
Growing never stops. But the one thing that I will say is that although you've gone through that process, know that everything that happened for a reason.
Yeah.
So where you are in 10 years, you're going to look back and be like, I'm so glad that happened, because I wouldn't have been able to do this.
Yeah, no, I know.
Right?
I know what you're saying. Yeah.
So your life is like a puzzle. And when you start to realize how it all strings together, it makes so much sense. So everything really happens for a reason. But I also want to say that it's never too late to start anything.
No, it's not.
You know,
no.
there's this idea that if you haven't been successful by age of 35, you're a failure.
Yeah.
Who the hell said that?
Yeah.
Other people like us who made up the rules. Like, that's not true.
There's
you
a-
can be 60 and become
start
a
something.
success.
There's
you
a
know?
guy, I mean, the one guy in Harry Potter decided at 45, that's 10 years from now, from me. At 45, he decided he wanted to be an actor. He then was in Die Hard 1, he was the villain, and then he became Snape in Harry Potter. I mean, he had a phenomenal, and he was a great actor.
100%.
Alan Rickman or something. But it is,
100%.
and I have seen it, but I think it's the idea that we as society have set up these, you must be something by 30, you must be something by 40. But it's also, it's everyone else's ambitions. We created them. Now what you're seeing is...
People like you and me created the rules, yet we listen to them like they're God.
Yeah, we
You know, we live by them like God wrote them himself.
We see these young kids that are 18 years old becoming YouTube stars. And I think it's also where the stress comes from, because we're going,
Panic!
this guy's 17 years old. He's worth $32 million. So then you're going,
100%.
but also I think life is a lot more stressful now because you can see and hear everything.
Yeah.
You know, our dads
and it's not, and I say dads because our parents grew up in the era where
Yeah.
our moms were moms and our dads was the ones who worked. So it's not a sexist thing. It's our dads had a lot less clutter and noise. They just worked. You studied, you graduated, you went to work, you made money.
Yeah.
Now, our fathers had it hard because, there was a lot of, like, your dad was a first generation, isn't he? Or was your grandfather first generation South African?
First generation, my dad came here with his mom.
Yeah, so your dad was, and they always say the first generation is going to struggle.
Yeah.
They're going to have it the hardest. Then the kids will bear from their fruit. But it's that idea. So we seeing a lot of young successful people, old successful people, the Bill Gates of those oaks. So we are in that.
It's confusing as hell.
It's confusing. Why didn't I make it at 18? Why am I not here? So it's God, I've made things in my garage. Why haven't I been, you know what I'm saying?
But remember, it's that victim mentality, right? So it is a mindset. It is a mindset. And if you look at the world, like you say you do, from the creative side, that anything is possible. There is a lot of opportunity. But the key is to clear our minds, understand what it is that we want and what we're good at. I always tell people that I don't know what business to start. I'm like, well, what did you do yesterday that you came home and you were like, that was a freaking awesome day?
Yeah.
What were you doing?
Yeah.
Start there.
Ask yourself that,
Find out what you love, because most people plan goals that they don't even know what they want. They get there, they achieve it, and they're like, now what?
Now what, yeah.
Because you're chasing end goals. They have no idea what they actually want. So I do think in today's world, it is about understanding yourself and start with your inner world. I always say it because whatever you do in your inner world will reflect in the physical world. Understand what it is that you want, and then you've got clarity. Then you can shut off all the clutter. Then it's easy.
Yeah.
But, we do let ourselves get really sidetracked. But I think in your case, your stories are just amazing, and that's why I wanted to talk to you today, because you were not even fazed by the circumstances that you grew up in, and it's important that you acknowledge that.
Yeah.
You could have said, guys, this was the situation I was born in. I have all odds against me. Like, the world is against me. Here I am, a black man in South Africa. Like, I'm going to fail in high school. I'm going to make a wreck out of my life after high school.
Yeah.
You didn't do any of that. In fact, you chose to define who you wanted to be. You wanted to be that rugby player. You wanted to be that creative person. Like, you decided who you wanted to be, and that's who you became.
Yeah.
So I think that's really inspiring. And the other thing is, just to sort of summarize the conversation, is that you also were extremely resilient. Although you might not see it now, I think you're going through a growth spurt now.
Yeah.
And it's, you're in that phase where you're about to seriously grow and try something new and exciting in your life.
Yeah.
But I do think that the resilience that you had to have, despite all the disempowering beliefs you might have formed from your upbringing and all that trauma, you decided to push through and carry on and use that creativity to inspire other people. So I want you to keep doing that. I really do. And I hope that whoever's listening to this wants to do more and wants more, and understands that you're not defined by where you come from or your environment. You decide what you want. You're not a victim.
Yeah, listen, there's no limits. It really isn't. There's so much, and there's so many amazing stories. From Sia Khaleesi to Trevor Noah to Caster Semenya to everybody that has been, that's done it, that's walked. You see these stories because these people just decide. And listen, I think it's also, there's a lot that stems from it. We spoke about the inner. You got to work your inner self. If you want to be successful, you have to, inside, it's like if you want to love someone, you first have to love yourself.
100%.
You got to know who you are, then you can love
100%.
somebody else. Then you'll be fine. And then the second step for me is, I will say this: if you want to be successful, have someone by your side. If you don't have,
100%.
there's many people who are single that are successful. Do not get me wrong. But I promise you, the road is a lot more fun if you're doing it with someone by your side. And they can push you, and they can get, because the days when you're down, they'll go, hey, this is just one more hour of whatever. Just do that. Just get that. Whatever. It is. But there's no limit. And especially in this country, that's what makes me so sad about it, is we have so many incredible people that are doing things because they just go, I have no other choice. And, some people get pushed to, when they're at rock bottom, they create and build from the bottom up because there's nowhere else for them to go. But if you have the opportunity to whatnot, create something. Don't wait for it to happen, because it's not. Because
you have one life. And I do think that it's never too late.
Yeah.
It doesn't
No,
matter
it's
how
true.
many times you've tried. It's not all or nothing. You're going to go through a lot of successful bursts in your
Yeah.
life, and everybody is, because the minute you hit that dip, you want to look, you decide, look, it's not working, what's happening?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I'm a failure.
Yeah.
You get out of that and you get excited again, because then you say, okay, you know what? I'm going to try that. I've
Yeah.
never done that, or this is my new goal. So
Yeah.
you grow, and those hard times is actually what gives you that kick in the butt.
Exactly,
Because
yeah.
it takes you out of that comfort zone, and that's what you want.
Yeah, exactly. That's
You
what
know,
you want to be able to go, okay, I need to
100%,
I need to get it up.
100%.
Yeah.
But Lucky, thank
Yeah.
you for joining me today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining my show. You are such an inspiration. You're my friend, but you still inspire me every day.
Yes.
So don't forget that, because
Yes. Thank
you
you.
have such an incredible story. And out of anyone, you could have thrown in the towel and decided your life could have gone a very different direction. But
Yeah.
you didn't. You overcame those disempowering beliefs. You weren't going to be a victim of your circumstances. You built your confidence through acts of courage, and that's what I always tell people to do.
Yeah.
Just do it. And the last thing, which is really important, is that you were persistent.
Yeah.
Those are the key ingredients.
Yeah, it's going to suck.
To being
It's-
successful,
You'll have bad comedy
you
nights, you just
know?
got to keep going. Yeah.
Just keep going, especially in comedy. Like, what
Yeah.
is more scary than that? I couldn't think
Yeah.
of anything worse. But thank you so much for
Yeah.
coming on my show.
Thank
I'm
you,
so
thank you.
happy that you're here. And for everyone else listening, if you want to talk about relationships, business, success, and mindset, Mind Being is the podcast for you. So keep listening, and thank you very much. Thank you, Lucky.